welcome to the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richie Day the Cruz, who is not here today, and Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hello.
It is Monday, May 9th, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Check out patreon.com/the Gaming Discourse. The people, our commanders and captains, get their names in the credits, and their names should have already scrolled past a couple seconds ago. We talked with Mark Dara of BioWare this past week. Had a great interview. We covered crunch, workplace toxicity, gaming, rising gaming budgets, accessibility, Anthem, Elden Ring. We covered a ton of stuff with him. I think it was a great podcast. If you go back, or great interview, go back and give it a listen. I think you'll learn a lot. We learned a ton.
Give it 2 listens.
Give it 2 listens. Give it 3. No, really go back and give it a listen because we came away learning a lot, and it was a great discussion. We do have some news to get into. Mm-hmm. We don't have Richard here, so we won't have
no bits.
We don't have tidbits, and we don't have MPDs. I don't think there are MPDs this week anyway. But why don't we just start with what you've been playing?
It was busy work at week, so I said that incorrectly, but we're going to move on.
Whatever.
Busy week at work.
Yeah, there you go.
So really just in the downtime I've had in between doing stuff at work, I've been able to put a little bit of time into Stardew Valley.
Oh, okay.
On the Switch, yeah.
How's that going?
Really fun. I'm about to go into the 3rd year in the game, and, still toiling away at the fields.
How long are years in that?
So it goes through obviously 4 seasons a year.
Sure.
And each season is 28 days.
Oh, so it's condensed.
Yeah.
Then okay.
Yeah.
So if each season is
4 weeks.
28 days, that means a year is about 4 months.
Yeah.
So that means you actually just played about a year's worth of days then, right? Because if a year.
No, I'm almost at the end of the 2nd year.
Oh, the 2nd year. Okay.
I'm about to hit the 3rd year.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna.
So I'm at like 2/3 of a year.
Sure. Okay. Cool. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All I know about Stardew Valley is the meme with the grandpa and how people keep making his bed worse and worse. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
With mods, it's like, yeah, people keep making, because at the beginning of the game, your grandpa's passing away and he's giving you, a deed to the land or whatever. Mm-hmm. But people keep making mods, making his bed like crappier and crappier, like to the point where it's just like he's on a like a rollout what's that thing called, sleeping bag, like on the floor.
I haven't seen these.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Okay, cool. So let's see. I finished Horizon Forbidden West.
Congratulations.
I liked the ending of Forbidden West. It sets up what is going to be the 3rd game. I think what I would look for in the next Horizon is a shift away from, I don't know, things like cliched open world things.
Yeah.
In every town, there is a fight pit. And if you fought and beat all the bosses, you got to go fight the main guy, right? Mm-hmm. Like this challenge. And I just didn't follow that quest because I just didn't have any interest. Like I said, there were races. I never tried out the races. I'm sure they're probably fine, but I just didn't have, I don't know. I wasn't interested because Horizon has all of these things that make it really cool. The storytelling, I think, is pretty cool. How the dialogue works is cool for the most part. Fighting giant machines is really cool. Mm-hmm. All that stuff is fun, and I wish it would lean into that than lean into the sort of giving player things to do that are sort of cliched things in the open world, So I hope with the next Horizon, they lean away from that and they lean toward an experience that's a little more unique, mm-hmm. and tries to take more advantage of what they're able of Horizon itself. Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say. I enjoyed it. If I had to give Game of the Year to a game, I'm probably giving it to Elden Ring.
Yeah.
But my enjoyment I probably enjoyed Forbidden West better, mm-hmm. or enjoyed it more. But it wasn't bad. It was good, and it told an interesting story that I thought was interesting to the end. It could have done a little bit more with giving your side characters more to do. You go back to base and you talk with them, but they're always in the same spot, and you always talk with them about like the same things. And there are quests that you can go on with them, but it seems like there was only maybe one quest per person instead of like a small quest line. And that's what I mean. And again, I don't know if this is difficult or easy because I'm not a game developer, but why not take the time away from making these races in the open world and spend that time and those resources on giving each of your side characters a little bit longer of a story with Aloy, right? And longer side quests and things like that. That's my preference that I hope they do eventually. What else have I played? I'm continuing my baseball, continuing my season as the Yankees. Still have not lost a game, but it's close. Who was it? Oh, it was George Springer. George Springer hit a homie off of Garrett Cole, and the Blue Jays led for like a couple innings. He had a jack, and I had to play from behind, but I won. I ended up winning 4-2. So it's like the AI, I don't know, it feels balanced. Like it feels tough that I dominate pitching wise for some reason, but hitting, it's like it's not like I'm beating teams to a pulp like 11-2 or something. It's 3-1, 4-1, 3-0. Like it's low scoring games. So I don't feel like it's, at least on the offensive side, it doesn't feel like I'm playing some super easy mode. Pitching wise, it does kind of feel like that, but because my offense isn't like super great, it tends to balance out. The difficulty's weird, but it's working thus far. I expect I'm going to lose at some point because there's just like I have to be playing on borrowed time. And it's not like, and like I said, it's not like every game I'm blowing the teams out. There are moments where I screw up and I have guys on second and third with one out, and then I'm able to get a strikeout and a ground ball for a put out at first or something like that, so I get out of a jam. But I'm assuming eventually that won't happen, and I'll lose a game or something. But I'll have to report once I get there. And then I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was playing Iron Lung, but I just felt like submarines. So I reinstalled Cold Waters, and I've been looking up tutorials and trying to relearn how to play Cold Waters. And I started a campaign today, and there's some new stuff. I played a campaign and I never saw a carrier. And in my first mission was to take on a carrier group, which I don't know.
Was it like an actual carrier or like a helicopter carrier?
No, it was a carrier with airplanes on it because I sunk it. And then I zoomed in on it to see what would happen, and it was sinking, but everything was still on
Static.
deck. Yeah, perfect. Which I get it. It's like a game where you're playing with models, not actual, But anyway,
it's funny you mentioned that because in U-boat, when you sink like a transport ship, transporting cargo or fuel or whatever, like the boat will catch on fire and will start to list and turn over, and the guys will still be on deck just walking around mopping. It's like, come on guys, you're sinking.
I gotta finish this mopping job. It's funny. But yeah, so my first mission was to hunt a carrier group. So you have a carrier, then you have the ships,
the escorts,
and then you have escorting subs too. So it's like 1-on-6, right? First time it died pretty much instantly. Reloaded the save. Second time got a little bit farther, died. Third time I reloaded the save, went into it, and it just became a brawl. I tried to sneak. My plan was to try and fire one of the missiles that pops out of the ocean and flies across and then hits a ship in the side. Because those are harder for a ship to evade because they're much faster than a torpedo.
Well, I mean, they also have anti-missile countermeasures on the ships.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be fine.
No.
Shut up. No. So I was going to try this out, and then torpedoes got launched at me. And of course, the only thing you can do when torpedoes get launched at you is just launch
full tilt.
Yeah, just launch torpedoes right back.
Just get the bearing that they're coming from. Just launch a full spread.
Yeah, full
and pray.
spread. So I launched tons of torpedoes. I was actually really proud of myself because I launched one of the Moss torpedoes, which mimics a sub signature. Yeah. And so I launched one of those, and it fooled a couple of the escort ships, and they started. And I actually, after I launched it, I turned around and looked, and they were dropping those long range depth charges. Yeah, they were dropping it on the mimic's position, and I was going the opposite way. So I successfully evaded them through sneaky means. But I ended up destroying a carrier, destroyed a sub on accident. It's probably one of my torpedoes I launched, and then like 15 minutes later, it made contact.
Or did your Moss cross path with it and they depth charged their own sub?
And then I ended up, I got into one really interesting cat and mouse with I think it may have just been a frigate. But this frigate was tracking me. And so the ship sort of stays above you and goes in a circle because it makes it harder to hit. But you have to escape it in order to exit the mission. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how I destroy this thing. So what I ended up doing, I was actually really proud of myself. So it was following me. I was going south. To my right, so to the west, I guess, there was one of those torpedoes and a circular search pattern, right? So that's basically a mine. Like you get near it, it detects you, all of a sudden torpedo in the water. So I couldn't go right. So I'm just going south. I couldn't go west, I'm just going south. The frigate is following me south. So what I did was I went south past the torpedo that was circling, and then I went southwest. So it's following me southwest, right? So as it was following above me, I turned around and I went the other direction. And as I turned around and went the other direction, I fired one of my torpedoes back directly south. So I have a torpedo to my northwest, and I'm firing a hostile torpedo. It's in a search pattern. And I fired a torpedo to my southeast, right? So now I have torpedoes in two different areas. I essentially made a little corridor, right? So I went between these two torpedoes, and the frigate had to turn around, but it couldn't go north because it had to go north and around that searching torpedo. If it tried to go south, it would have to go south and evade the torpedo I just fired. So I was super proud of myself because that's how I got away. I flipped and went back northeast. And then as I was going northeast, I fired another torpedo and another Moss to keep it guessing. So as it got through that corridor, it caught on to the Moss, and then it zeroed in on that, not knowing that I was already light years away. And then I fired another torpedo just to keep it busy. And so I was very, very, very proud of myself for that little maneuver, because it was good little improvisation and with emergent gameplay. And that's when Cold Waters is great, when you can do little things like that. So I didn't play a ton of submarine games growing up and stuff like that, but if Cold Waters isn't one of the better submarine games ever made, I'd be surprised.
You could always, like, in that situation, just like drop down to like just above crush depth and just slow to a crawl.
Yeah, but they seem to be on me anyway. So I don't think, and there wasn't a layer.
No, there wasn't a layer.
No, okay. There wasn't a layer. So I think even if, and the ocean floor was probably
above crush depth.
No, it was like 1300. Okay. So it was definitely, and I know you can get to, as long as you're not damaged in the Los Angeles class, I'm not sure how deep you can get before you just explode.
I think it's right around 1300.
Is it right around 13? Okay. Yeah, because there have been a few times where I got like, where I was maneuvering and it's like passing 1,000. I was like, oh shit. Up. Because it's like, I'm just not paying attention to the depth. But anyway, that's a very good, very tense game. It can be very frustrating though, because it's just like rig for ultra quiet. 5 seconds later, helicopter drops a torpedo right on you, and it's like, what the hell else am I supposed to do here?
That and U-Boat are just high tension games.
Yeah,
like especially U-Boat because it's World War II tech. Yeah, so you can't stay under pretty much at all past like 5 minutes. You got to do everything quick.
Can you not run a snorkel?
You have to unlock it.
Oh,
because it depends on when you choose to start the game. If you start towards the earlier side of World War I, before they implemented snorkels into
World War II.
World War
Okay,
II.
yeah.
Before they implemented snorkels to the submarines, then you don't. But you also have to remember, snorkel sticks out of the water.
Yeah, so it's visible.
And it makes you a target, and then they know where to either drop depth charges or have a plane circle around and have everyone avoid you.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I'll have to try U-boat because I tried it out for like a couple minutes a long time ago, but I never really was able to sink my teeth into it. Neither the resource management side or the combat side. So, although I assume the combat side probably isn't as chaotic as Cold Waters can be, because there weren't wire-guided torpedoes in World War II, correct?
No, but there were magnetic torpedoes.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Really?
Yes. Well, magnetic detonation. You'd still have to like get the right trajectory, but you could be off by a little bit,
and it would home in sort of right at the end.
Sort of.
How does that?
There were ones that had search patterns and that had hydrophones on them that would pick up sound and then steer towards the sound.
Oh, interesting.
But they were very, very low tech. So, I mean, they could pick up on another torpedo or onto you. So it was really, really finicky on if you wanted to use it. But you were about to ask a question?
Yeah, because if it's magnetic, because you can't make something not magnetic and then turn the magnet on, right? So it's like, I wonder how that would work, because as soon as you fired it out of the tube, like that magnet it's going to be attracted to something, right?
Well, it's the magnetic pistol is what it was called, that detonates the torpedo, had a timer on it. So you would launch it, and there would be a small window of when it's near your submarine where it's not active, and then it activates, and then it's a deadly weapon in the water.
Oh, okay.
And historically and in the game, they mimic this. The pistols were very finicky and could just detonate in the water randomly.
Nice. It's always great.
I was scrolling through the U-boat subreddit, and it detonated like 10 feet off the torpedo's bow. And he was like, I shat myself. Because in that game, your torpedoes aren't coming after you. So when a torpedo detonates next to you, it's terrifying.
Funny. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as opposed to Cold Waters, where it's just like on a Tuesday you have 6 torpedoes on you, you know. Okay. You want to hit the ad?
Yep. We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
Xbox plans to launch a streaming Puck and Samsung app in the next year. As reported by VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb, Microsoft plans to release a cloud gaming streaming device within the next 12 months. So similar to like an Amazon Fire Stick, it will allow you to access movies and TV as well as games. Microsoft is also working with Samsung to develop an Xbox game streaming app, which will also debut sometime in the next 12 months. Is streaming the future of gaming?
No. I think streaming is a future. I'll take back what I said. It's not the future of gaming.
Sure.
Is it a future of gaming? Yes. We already have stuff that you can stream locally between systems and mobile devices, or between systems. But I don't think that streaming games is the actual future of gaming. It's just going to be a part of gaming.
I would concur. I think that every time we talk about streaming, we need to talk about its problems. And it's not just latency. So that's problem number 1 is latency. Problem number 2 is that you don't have any form of copy. Even if it's a copy that's sort of digitally locked to Steam, at least there's something on your hard drive, right?
Yeah.
Something there. With streaming, you don't have anything like that. Preservation makes me scared. If a game only exists on Google servers and they have zero, if it were completely up to if old Nintendo games only existed on Nintendo servers, guess what? We're never seeing those games again because you can't leave preservation up to the IP holders, as Frank Cifaldi and a bunch of other people say all the time. So preservation, I think, is an issue that makes me worried. And also, a streaming service is a paradigm that I think incentivizes games to be made a certain way. Because if you are running a service and you want people retained to that service, you're going to have to make a game that fits that paradigm. And if I don't know, if your streaming tech isn't the best or whatever, you don't want to worry about too much latency or whatever, maybe it's not as visually demanding or mechanically demanding. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much in that arena, but I think that's reasonable, right? And this was the problems with Google Stadia when they announced that they were going to do their own exclusives. It was like, okay, well, what are the exclusives going to look like? And I don't think anybody thought they were going to be God of War or Elden Ring or anything like that, right? Because it had to be something that could make money and could retain players. And so there was going to be some MMO bullshit or something like that, right? Or some looter shooter that people probably would have played, but I think a lot of people would have preferred something worthwhile, like a God of War or an Elden Ring or what have you. So I think that's another problem. But yeah, I think streaming as an option is great, but there always seems to be a way to download things. That's not a perfect solution either, but I think that's a better solution than a streaming centric industry. And whatever companies say they want, I think we also should remember that it is not for the betterment of the art or the medium of video games. It is the betterment
for the company.
Because again, if it were up to Bobby Kotick or Andrew Wilson or Strauss Zelnick or Yosuke Matsuda or whatever, it wouldn't be about a sustainable business. It would be about making as much money as you possibly could, which bothers me because that sucks. And I don't think that's the industry anybody actually wants. Anything you would like to say about this?
Actually, yeah. So if we want to look at the possibility of video game streaming as a viable business, we need to look at movie and TV show streaming and what has happened with it. Because yes,
that's another good. Yeah.
Let's say it becomes a viable way to play video games. Latency isn't an issue anymore. They have a good source of games feeding into it. All right. Well, now everyone wants to be a part of it. You have, let's say Microsoft does it first. Microsoft is then the Netflix of video game streaming. And what happened with that? Everyone else started their own streaming platform.
Yeah, sure.
And shows that were very popular on Netflix got pulled to their parent streaming service. And then the market got saturated with different streaming services. And now people are picking one or two and sticking with that and sharing with other people.
Yeah.
Which is affecting the streaming industry as a whole because there's less people in it, because people are just sharing, because there's too many streaming services.
Sure.
And that will 100% happen with video games because the second EA figures out how to stream their own games, they're going to set up their own streaming service like they did with Origin and then abandoned Origin, but kind of abandoned Origin.
I think that's a really good analogy is the storefront, right? Ubisoft set up Uplay, Origin, Epic, Bethesda had their own storefront, Rockstar had their own storefront, and on many of those fronts, it was just it was
garbage.
It was totally garbage. So I think that's a really good analogy. But the only thing I would say is that streaming video games I would imagine, is more complex and
than streaming a movie.
Yeah, than streaming a movie, more complex and more expensive.
And that's I feel that's the start of the conversation, but with more companies seeming to be wanting to get into it, the meat of the topic really is, okay, who is streaming? Like, who is providing the streaming services? And how many games are going to be on there versus everyone else starting up their own streaming service?
And Electronic Arts did announce their streaming. They're working on streaming tech a long time ago, like 3 years ago now.
Something like that.
And Bethesda also, not Bethesda. Wait, was it Bethesda?
Don't remember.
It was either Bethesda or like id Software or something. I thought it was at the Bethesda showcase they were talking about. It doesn't matter. Anyway, okay. A report: Ubisoft's founding family likely to oppose full takeover. So take this report with a little grain of salt, and I'll explain why. I saw this. This is a Eurogamer story, and the Eurogamer story is reporting about a story from Seeking Alpha, which was reporting something from Deal Reporter. So we have a little bit of a game of telephone. Now, I want to talk a little bit about...
Fourth-hand story?
Yeah. I tried to sign into Seeking Alpha because I was like, well, maybe I can cut Eurogamer out here, go straight to Seeking Alpha. And I could not for the life of me create an account, even though creating an account is free. Like, I was like, all right, send me a confirmation email. Never got a confirmation email.
Did you put your right email?
Yeah. I tried a couple different emails. So I gave up. And that's Seeking Alpha's fault. It's a investment news, blah, blah, blah. So whatever. But regardless.
Well, now they have your information.
They have my email.
Yeah.
Okay. So the report is that the Guillermo from
Del Toro?
Yeah. Guillermo del Toro. No, Yves Guillemot. The Guillemot family is looking to partner with one of the private equity firms in order to retain control of the company. Last week, we discussed private equity firms Blackstone and KKR were looking to purchase Ubisoft. Interestingly, Variety says Ubisoft is valued at around $5.2 billion, which I have not seen. I'm not sure if they did their own in-house estimation on that or if... I don't know where they got it from, but that's not that... Honestly, that didn't seem crazy to me, considering what Ubisoft has. To me, it's another slap in the face to Square Enix. That cool 300 million.
That whole situation with Square Enix selling the 3 studios and all those IPs for 300 million, that's ridiculous.
It's pathetic. It's what it is. It's pathetic.
Yeah.
It is a sad showcase of, I'm not even sure what
mismanagement.
To call it. Just stupid mismanagement. And it's pathetic.
Incompetent mismanagement.
Well, I'm not even sure if it's incompetence because it's like
that's
incompetence. They know what they're doing. They just don't care because they think blockchain's going to pick up the slack or some bullshit like that. And it just sucks. It's just dumb. Mm-hmm. But anyway, this Ubisoft thing. Okay, so I do wonder what's the play here? Because you
abandoned ship.
Well, okay, but if you're joining with a private equity firm to to retain control, then that's what you're not doing. You're not abandoning ship. But why bring somebody else? Why bring another shareholder in to buy up like a big chunk of the company? I think that's interesting.
To replace the people they let go of.
Maybe. But is it like, are you doing that to stave off a complete takeover?
Possibly.
Something like what went down with Vivendi back in the day? Do you think if you brought in private equity and you set it up as like a partnership, that reduces the chances that a year down the road a company doesn't come in and do something like Vivendi tried to do? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the play here. I don't know. And it's like, if you're willing to sell, how much money does it take to make you think of that complete takeover, right? Because if you are willing to go to I don't know, someone to buy in, but you retain control, I imagine there's going to be an amount of money that you would accept to ultimately cut your losses. So those are the two things that I wonder. But yeah, like Square Enix, Ubisoft is a mismanaged disappointment. They have great IPs that sell, but their experiments into blockchain are dumb as hell. Their live service stuff is dumb as hell, and they're too risk averse. And it's because, just like all these other stupid ass companies, their goals, there are attainable. They can sustain a business and make money, but that's not their goal. Their goal is to take over the world with blockchain, and so they do stupid shit. And that is besides the culture stuff, which obviously, I don't know. It just annoys me a bit. Like, I'm sure there are people at Ubisoft trying to make it better and stuff, but it's just like, I don't know. I guess it annoys me because it's just like, it almost feels like they got away with something. But I know in some ways they didn't, because a lot of people lost jobs and things like that. But it just irks me. I don't want them to sell. I want them to get fired. Anyway, I'm going to move on unless there's something you want.
No.
Okay. A report from IGN inside the growing discontent at Nintendo of America. This story is pretty long. So I'm gonna do a summary here of it, but I would definitely recommend going and reading it. There's also a video companion, so we can't cover everything, but I tried to get the gist. Some background. Last week, as first reported by Axios and then Kotaku read a story, a worker at Nintendo of America said Nintendo violated their right to organize and filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. Nintendo denied any wrongdoing. The story by IGN is written by Kat Bailey. IGN spoke to a dozen current/former employees, both contracted and full-time. The big picture: contractors feel like second-class citizens, and getting a full-time position feels increasingly unlikely. The culture at Nintendo of America is described as restrictive and old-fashioned and paranoid. Contractors said they'd have to account for virtually every minute on their timesheet. One specific example is paranoia over Microsoft Teams making them or showing them as idle if they leave their desk. Sources said they'd leave things on their insert key on their keyboard so that Microsoft Teams wouldn't say that they were idle. Posting on social media is also something that people say is a source of paranoia. Time off can be frowned upon and is viewed as putting a burden on teammates. Sick days are said to include fervent apologies and promises to be in touch. For some reason, Nintendo is resistant to hiring full-time employees. One source estimated that over the last 3 years, demand for localization writers and editors has doubled, but there have been no full-time hires within the localization team. Melissa, a former customer service rep who decided not to continue working at Nintendo of America after becoming discouraged about her future, said, quote, "Since I've left, I've had very mixed feelings about my time there, wondering if maybe I was just expecting too much. I've seen a number of people commenting on these stories, saying that this is just how contracting is and that you can't expect more from it. But the bottom line is that employees, contract or not, want to be treated like actual human beings and not easily replaceable machines. And I think that applies to nearly every labor conversation that has been happening lately. Is it really too much to ask for?" End quote. Okay. It's weird to have a story about a culture that's not crunch or horrible workplace toxicity. But yeah, what's challenging about the story is that it's not about, I don't know, when we talk about crunch happens in different industries, but the games industry is like an industry where it is specifically bad. I was trying to think of a different word. Or is especially bad there. So that sort of ties it together with gaming. But this sort of thing is like a bigger issue. It has to do more with like the tech space and maybe even a little bit of like the gig economy than like crunch has to do, or than it just has to do with gaming itself. So like, I don't know. I want to say I just wish things were different, and also like it doesn't matter if this is the way things are, because just because this is the way things are doesn't mean they can't get better. I don't know. That bothers me when people say that about anything. Like, this is just the way things are. And it's like, well, okay, does that mean we can't talk about it? We can't discuss it? We can't try and make it better? None of that makes sense. But yeah, and to me, Nintendo's always had like a really dogmatic approach to how they do business. And it doesn't surprise me that that extends to their culture. Reggie Fils-Aimé, he did a few interviews for his new book. He said that he, when he left, the culture wasn't like this. So I don't know if, I don't remember reading that the culture was like different 15 years ago or whatever. But yeah, but this go ahead.
This story is from current and former employees. Reggie left in 2019.
Yeah.
So unless things took a drastic nosedive in 2019 and the former employees only quit recently or only quit right after Reggie left, then this has been an issue ongoing. And as someone who is a contract worker who works for a company that deals with a lot of contract workers, you are treated like a second-class citizen. There are a lot of things that should be fairly normal and accessible that are, on site that aren't, because you don't have the right badge color.
Yeah, and in the story they talk about red badges and blue badges, and if you're a red badge, you're somebody. I think it was blue badge, but if you're a red badge, you're a full-time Nintendo of America employee, and if not, you're one of the contracting companies. Yeah.
And yeah, the statement of that's just how contracting is, that extends out past contracting in the games industry. That's, where I work too. That happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how it is, but it should change.
Yeah, definitely. No. There's really not much else to say about, at least, I don't know. To me, I'm good with that, I guess. As lame as that sounds. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I want to dunk on Ubisoft some more. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, you ready for tidbits?
Sure.
All right, play tidbits. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits. Rich is not here.
Yeah.
We're not even at 40 minutes yet.
No.
Is there anything you want to talk about?
We can just dunk on Ubisoft some more.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. We post videos. Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. Go check out the interview with Mark Dara. It's on SoundCloud and it's on our YouTube channel. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.